Today, I'm going to talk about my National Geographic funded project in collaboration with colleagues at Hokkaido University. So, climate change is increasing the frequency and intensity of extreme climatic events like heat waves. And we can use semi-natural mesocosm experiments as natural simulations to understand the potential impacts of future climate change. Our experiment was conducted in Tomakomai Forest in Hokkaido, the northernmost island of Japan. And here's the kind of temperature change historic records there. But the vast majority of experiments manipulating temperature to date have been misrepresentative of climate change projections. So we join only a handful of studies in manipulating temperatures based on local projections. So here for the Tomakomai region of Japan. So we used realistic heat wave characteristics on top of background warming projections. We used stream mesocosms, so constantly flowing water, which allows natural colonization and drift of macroinvertebrates and microorganisms and algae. And so water is pumped, maybe you can see this, water is pumped upstream through a pump to these three header tanks up here, and then flows down through the mesocosms and back into the stream. So during the heat wave part of the experiment, the heating is conducted in the header tanks. But climate change isn't the only stressor that ecosystems face. Species are going extinct at rates far beyond those considered normal background rates of extinction. And extinctions tend to be non-random. Generally, predators go extinct before their prey, leading to this trophic downgrading where food chains are getting shorter over time. And so we wanted to know whether predator extinctions worsen the impacts of heat waves. So meet the freshwater sculpin. So this is an apex predator in the Horonai stream ecosystem that we were studying. And we know a lot about the Horonai food web thanks to decades of pioneering work by Shigeru Nakano and colleagues. And actually, Amy Mossarelli and others recently published the fully resolved trophic network, making Horonai stream a perfect place to study the effects of species extinctions and changes to food web structure. And there's our freshwater sculpin at the top just there. So we ran a fully factorial experiment looking at the effects of predator extinctions and heat waves on aquatic community dynamics and stability using mesocosms as a natural simulation. And we looked for differences between mesocosms where predators were present to where they were absent to mimic this kind of trophic downgrading or loss of a top predator. And we did this under ambient temperature conditions, as well as under two different heat wave scenarios. One was based on observed heat waves for the local region during the past century, which we call current heat waves indicated with the C. And one based on projected future heat waves at the end of the century under the IPCC worst case scenario, again for this local region of Tomakomai, and that's the F for future. So what did we actually measure? Well, each day I used a bentho torch to measure the biomass and composition of algae. And I did this in 3 microhabitats per mesocosm, so we can measure spatial variability or patchiness, a measure of stability of biomass and composition. And we can also look at the variability through time, which gives us a measure of variability in space and a measure of variability in time. So overall then, heat waves didn't affect the stability of algal biomass in time or space, and neither did the predator. So there were no differences at all between treatments during the heat wave period. But predator extinctions did reveal heat wave effects on algal compositional variability. So we saw, particularly for spatial variability, in the presence of predators, heat waves were not destabilizing, but where predators were absent, that's where they were simulated to have gone extinct, heat waves decreased compositional stability. We also looked at macroinvertebrate communities to identify the mechanism through which predators were having these effects. And as we expected, fish reduced the richness and abundance of macroinvertebrate herbivores. They were eating them, with knock-on effects for leaf shredding by those macroinvertebrates. And they generally shifted community composition. So the mechanism was changes to the macroinvertebrate community. So this was a classic trophic cascade. So I want to thank many people who made this possible, but particularly Ian Donahue, Jorge Garcia Molinos, and Osamu Kishida, as well as funding from National Geographic, Irish Research Council, and the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. So in summary, predators buffered the destabilizing effects of heat waves on algal composition, mediated through a trophic cascade affecting macroinvertebrate herbivores. But predator contributions to the stability of biomass and composition were independent of each other. Predators stabilized composition, but not biomass. And extinctions can compromise the ability of communities to resist other stresses. So biodiversity, and in our case, particularly top predators, are important for mitigating future climate change impacts. Thank you.